if not, how many were there?
It's not one shot. It's made up. I couldn't really even tell you how many. I can tell you most of the shots lasted around 13 minutes. And the reason it's not one shot wasn't because it couldn't be done, but because what our job here was to make a great movie and give the audience the experience that's different than a normal film, of experiencing something where you're not breaking away, you're not cutting, and you're with the character, discovering everything as the character discovers it. Now, if we wanted bragging rights to say we did all in one shot, we could have done that, but then we've been limiting ourselves technically to the complexity of those shots and what we can do. So we took every shot for as long a period of time as was feasibly possible without hurting the integrity of what we were creatively trying to do in the picture.
And how did you prepare your crew and your actors or actresses for such long periods of shooting?
Basically, as Chris was saying, once the script was written, we went into the house and we started to run the whole movie over and over and over again. Once we had some pretty good idea of what we wanted, we brought in our DP, and then we refined it with him. And of course, he had so many ideas, and we started to choreograph everything with him. Then we brought the actors in. So we
also had a lot of ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had 2 weeks at first because the camera movements has to be justified by the movement of the actors. So this was a choreography that had to be entirely planned out ahead of time. We had a 2-week rehearsal period in which we ran the movie many, many times with the whole crew and the cast. And then when it came time to shoot, we basically were pretty prepared. It was a question of really just getting the shot, which was not easy because there were so many elements that had to be coordinated. All those lights I talked about was on a dimmer board with an operator in another room who had to ride those lights because we would go from the first floor to the third floor, from the basement to outside to the car, back into the house without cutting. You know, even that opening crane shot, getting off the crane and going into the house, all of that was done without cutting. It meant a lot of people had to hit their cues exactly right. And of course, we never could hit it right until we were, you know, well into the teens, sometimes even 30 takes before we could actually get one of these long sequences.
And the trick, you know, people were comparing this to theater in a lot of ways because it makes sense for long takes. But, you know, I was talking to Lizzie recently, and it's so much harder in a certain way for an actor because in theater, you know, when you're playing in front of a live audience, you know, and some technical mishap happens or someone misses a lighting cue, well, you know, you have to roll with it. The audience is there, and you find a way, you improvise, and you get through it. Here, a film that later can be scrutinized and everything, you can't do that. Here, Lizzie can give everything. The tears are dripping, and snot is flowing, and the emotions are pumping, and she's really in this place, and she's 12 minutes into a take, and a guy will miss a lighting cue, or a prop guy will miss something. That's scrap. That's garbage now. That is gone. Lizzie, guess what? You get to go back and do it again, and again, and again, and again. And I don't think we ever got a take until we got to the teens, and often got to the 20s. So that was a real different kind. I think it's a unique challenge for an actor, and she really rose to the occasion. She got better every time.
That's why she looks so rattled in the movie.
And here's another, just speaking of technical challenges, because there was the matter of choreography of passing the camera from one camera operator to another camera operator and into the car. Now, but that sequence where she comes out of the basement and it's all one shot.
Let me tell them how that goes.
Okay, why don't you give
And
that?
then you can
Okay, I'll say the other.
Yeah, basically that sequence was one of our most tricky sequences for a couple of reasons, which he was going to tell you about the light. You want to say that part?
Well, you can go first.
But basically what we do is, to get
I'm
that...
married. I learned how to handle this. After you, dog.
Thank you, sweetheart. See, ladies, this is how you do it.
I know my place.
So basically what happened was one operator came out with the camera and out of the basement and ran with her. And he handed the camera through the window to another operator who was in the back seat of the car. Then he got to the back of the car and he hung on to it as we drove to the house. Then when Peter came out of the car, that operator got into the car and the guy in the back seat handed him the camera. And when Peter opened up the trunk to take out the gun, he got out of the car. And then when Lizzie got out of the car, the operator in the front seat gave the camera back to that operator who went back into the house with the camera. And we did that with that camera.
And that was the easy part. It was definitely easy, and they got it down, and it was not to make light of it. It was hard, but that was the easy part because you're always working with color and light and all these things when you make a film and trying to do everything you can to emotionally heighten the story you're telling. And this story starts out in daylight, and she goes into this dark house, and we know all the tropes. You know, again, we're always working on a metaphorical level, not just a surface level. We're trying to work on both. So she ends up in this dark house, trapped in the darkness, even though there's light all around. So she finally makes a break for it. She finally gets out into light again. And what we wanted, because of what the issue really is, what's really happening to this girl, what she's really dealing with, you can't just escape. And so on a metaphorical level, using light, we wanted the darkness that was inside the house to envelop the outside as well. And so we wanted it, in the course of that shot, to go from the time she runs out of the basement to get dark. By the time she gets in the car, drives back to the house, and back into the house, it's dark outside. The only way to do that, you know, we had a low budget, is Mother Nature, is shooting as the sun goes down. So it was very, very difficult to get that shot within that very short window with all the complicated choreography as the sun went down.